Namaste and welcome to Satsang today. So the feeling that arose before Satsang here was to really explore in this time we have together what is seeing, who is the seer, noticing the seer of all things, which is really only our own self. By many different names it's been called. The Supreme Self, the Noumenon, Parabrahman, awareness, consciousness, presence, the Seer. It goes on and on and on. God, divinity. There are infinite number of names for that which really has no name, because it's not an object, it's not a thing. It is that in which all things or objects seem to appear. And I wanted to bring some focus to this, and we'll do a meditation in a moment, which you're more than welcome to join in, just to help us recognize the seer, what is here that is seeing. It's human nature that all attention goes to what is seen, to what we're experiencing, either in our experience in our life or in our internal environment. We're seeing thoughts and emotions and contractions in the body, tensions. Maybe we're seeing epiphanies, realizations, glimpses of truth, all of those. And really, if we look at the ultimate purpose or reason behind all creation, all manifestation, it is really just to help you recognize your own self, to help me recognize my own self, that there is only one seer, and it is omnipresent and always seeing, always being, and that somehow it created all of this as a way to help it recognize itself. And that recognition can happen very quickly once we realize that anything that we see, anything at all, can either serve to distract us from our awakening, or it can be there to help us recognize that we're seeing. And when I looked at this in my own journey, there was a huge relief, actually, that I don't have to get rid of any phenomena, even and including this sense of a someone, the sense of a separate person that was still very strongly there at the time. What if even that, I feel like a someone, I feel like someone. What if even that was there to help me see that I'm seeing it? That anything that passes in front of me, whether it stays for a moment like a thought, or a whole lifetime like the body, or a whole eon like the universe itself, is here to help me recognize that I am seeing. I'm not a separate person seeing. I am the seeing, the infinite seer. And from that place, then, we're not so much in opposition or rejection of any phenomenon at all, any object, anything. Anything that comes and goes can be celebrated, as it helps us to recognize that we're seeing it. If you ever had a thought that you weren't aware of, can you have a thought? if you're not aware of it? Can anything arise without you seeing it? Even if we think, well, sometimes I seem to be aware and awake, and sometimes not so much. Sometimes I'm lost in thoughts, in illusion. But the seer is still there. It's just seeing the illusion. It's paying all of its attention to the illusion, the separate sense of a someone. The seer is still there, watching. Even at nighttime in deep sleep, it's watching nothing at all. It's just watching still, seeing the body and the world and everything disappear. Duality, time, change, everything. And then it watches the dream at nighttime in the dream state. The next morning, it watches the separate sense of a self wake up and seemingly move throughout its day and then disappear again at nighttime. It's always seeing, you're always seeing, you always know. If a thought arises or an emotion, you know it's there. You see it. And it's not of the mind, the seer. The seer knows the mind. The mind doesn't know the seer. When you see a thought appearing, or if you make an image in your mind right now, make an image of a pink elephant in your head right now. You see it. You don't have to think about seeing it. It's instantaneous. You look at your hand, you know what your eyes are seeing. Instantaneous. The seer sees through the eyes and also sees without the eyes. So let's do a meditation on recognizing this seer. And perhaps fall back in love with phenomena a little bit as perhaps the best teachers that we could ever have along the journey. So whenever you're ready, just find a nice comfy position and you can close your eyes or keep them open. Best not to lie down unless you really have to for some medical reason. But you also don't have to sit rigid, upright either. If that was one of the prerequisites for awakening, I would not have been able to fulfill that one. But just sitting upright and comfy, so you can kind of just let your body be there. And let's begin by taking a few deep breaths, moving the diaphragm and the chest as you breathe. And just seeing the breath, seeing the body moving, seeing the air rushing in and out. You know that breathing is happening. You see it. Breathing in and out. Allowing your body to relax as much as it wants to. And if that's not at all, that's okay. Recognizing that perhaps the first thing you see as a seer is the body itself. You see it, you know it. So we're not going to be trying to get rid of anything. We're not going to be trying to make anything happen either. Whenever a thought arises, can you recognize that you're seeing it? Coming back to the sense of seeing it, the recognition. These words, you know, your ears hear these words and you know what you're hearing. So whatever phenomenon arises, a sound in your environment, the dog barking, stomach growling, a thought passing by, tension in the body, an itch or a sneeze. What if they are just here to help you see that you're seeing, that you are knowing itself? Nothing can happen in your experience without you being there first to notice it. So if there's a thought or some pain in the body or tension, do you see it? Just see it. And then see that you're seeing, noticing that which sees. Whatever phenomenon arises, you can just let it arise. Thought and emotion. And use it to see that you're seeing. You're aware. You know. Over time, it'll become clearer that anything that's seen is arising out of you, the seer. And it's not really different. But for now, just allowing these thoughts, emotions, experiences, sensations to help us recognize ourselves as the seer of them. whatever comes and goes, is helping you see that you're always here. So we'll spend a few minutes, and whatever arises in that few minutes, thoughts, emotions, memories, desires, sounds outside, feelings, and they arise, we'll just notice that we're seeing them. No phenomenon can appear without you here to see it. You are the seer. So in a few moments, we'll bring this to a close. But we can continue throughout the rest of this satsang, the rest of this day, the rest of this life, allowing phenomena to show us who we are. You are the infinite seer, always and eternal. So whenever you are ready, if you want to, take a few nice deep breaths, have a stretch, move around if you need to, have a drink if you need to, and bring yourself back fully, only if you want to. I hope you enjoyed the meditation. And when we use phenomena in this way, we make them sacred. We make them holy. We use them for the highest purpose. Even the crazy mind can be seen. And even the crazy mind can serve us in this way, allowing us to recognize ourselves as the seer, the one being that's looking through every pair of eyes. And looking from everywhere. Each human body, it just thinks itself to be separate. On a thought process says that it's separate, but the seer itself is universal and whole and one. So I will answer a couple of questions that have been sent in, and I'll take up to 4 questions here online. If you want to put your hand up, I will come to you after I've answered these couple here. So this first one says, hi Helen, thank you for all your offerings. Recently, the word objectification has come to me as a good replacement for object. Awareness is seemingly reduced to the status of an object through labeling and perceiving borders, etc. The body and mind, too, are objectifications. Now it's easier when I look around to know there is nothing but myself. I can sense that time before my first memory, when I was experiencing without qualifications. I'd love your thoughts on this insight. Thank you so much. So, objectification, it's a good word, right? The tendency to objectify, the habit of seeing an object where there is none. It's when that becomes clear that that's what we're doing, even if I was to inquire and see my own formless no-thingness directly experience that. Still, we're thinking about that awareness, as you called it here. We're thinking about it as if it has limits and borders, like you said. And without this tendency to objectify awareness, to make it into an, or this seer, as we're calling it here, one seeing would be enough, right? I would inquire, I would find myself to be insubstantial and formless, and I would recognize that I am omnipresent and that all diversity, duality, and multiplicity is simply an appearance, but never actually so. There never was 2 or 10 or billions. But it's this tendency to objectify, to look in here and see an object, and to look out there and see objects. when really they don't exist. There's only one formless, insubstantial, very real no-thingness that is pure intelligence itself, pure sentience. But if we realize I am this awareness, this sentience, and it has no edges, it goes on forever. There is nothing else. Why isn't that seeing enough? Why doesn't it simultaneously wipe out all of my perception of other and my capacity to suffer? It's because of this, right? We look at awareness, the seeing, and we think it's even if we don't consciously recognize that I'm putting limits on awareness, I must be doing that, right? If I think I stop somewhere and you start somewhere else, I mustn't have seen what it really means to be formless. And this love affair that we have, this deep fascination with objects, phenomena. And I might have even seen I'm not actually an object myself, but I think that you are still, or I think that there are other beings in the world. And it hasn't fully hit home. This here and everywhere is just a collection of vibrational energy, right? And yet we give it a label and condense it down. We think it's a solid thing, a body. We use that word and we forgot what it really means. It means no thingness, emptiness, mind, thoughts, just as equally insubstantial and empty, completely. Yet we really think they're real things and we experience them as real things affecting me. This thought is affecting me because I'm a thing and it's a thing. But where's the boundary between me and my thoughts? Is there really one? Can there be? If I am insubstantial and formless, where does formlessness reach? Where does it stop? Can it stop? If you do some self-inquiry across the other side of the planet to where this body is sitting, do you experience a different awareness than this one would experience? Not at all. Same. Undivided, unbroken, indivisible even. And you can sense that time before your first memory when you're experiencing without qualifications. Why not now too, right? Maybe that's what you're pointing to. Right now, the one that sees time and memory and qualifications is totally unqualified, without qualifications, even now. The very next thought or word is seen and heard by you, and you're everywhere, completely. You're the one giving this satsang and listening to it through countless ears. So even right now, it doesn't really matter how long it takes for the tendency to objectify things to disappear from our thought structure. We might still be thinking in duality, but awareness is already free completely. And it will gradually transform our thought process. And here is a huge clue. For me, this was fundamental. If I am not an object, then I am omnipresent by default. If I'm not somewhere in time and space, but I do exist and I can't find any edges to my being, then I must be everywhere. What does that mean? It means there are no others at all. No things, no people. Or I am just an appearance in the Supreme Self. I am the Supreme Self appearing as whatever label we put on this body. But yeah, that's a fun rabbit hole to go down, and it also leads to total liberation. Next question. There are no hands up, so I will just keep reading unless someone has a question. I'm fascinated by what I see of Helen. Thank you. I would like to ask if after these wonderful teachings there is any person who has awakened, who has become enlightened, who already knows experientially that she is not a person. Thanks a lot. I'd like to ask if after these wonderful teachings there is any person who has awakened, who has become enlightened, who already knows experientially that she is not a person. Well, technically, course, no person becomes enlightened. Enlightenment recognizes itself as in its omnipresence, but I know what you're asking. I'm assuming you're asking how many students have woken up from these teachings, right? If not, then please write back in. In our graduate program community, there are lots of beings that have deeply seen that they are not a person, not an object, and who are at various stages in undoing the enmeshed dualistic network of thoughts that blocks that seeing from expressing itself as the truth. So there are many, many, many. Outside of the graduate program, I don't really know because I don't know where people are. I only tend to speak to them if they're inside the community or on Satsang like this. But there are a lot. Because one of the things we focus on here is a simple step-by-step way and eliminating the doubts that usually get in the way of that seeing, having recognized that seer, having recognized itself. So I hope that answers the question. Okay, we'll go to Robert when you're ready. He's still mute. There we go.
There we go. Great. Thank you very much. Cheers, Helen. It was sort of twofold, and one might negate the other, but it was firstly, it's almost me trying to get a sense of direction, as it were, a heading. And is it fair to say that ultimately what everyone, just for use of language, or sort of individuations, is ultimately trying to find or be able to embody the ultimate sense of safety rather than having to avoid aspects of life, control things, work things out to feel safe? That, you know, one end is taking medication. It's limited. It might help bring a sense of ease or whatever. And then there's counseling, therapies, all sorts of things, all the way up to where we are, which is the ultimate truth. And in seeing the ultimate truth of who we are, those neuroses disappear, or a lot of that they sort of dissipate in this understanding of who you are, not the person that all those fears are built upon, that conditioning, but in seeing this, that the body mind organism, if you will, if you're talking sort of like ultimately, becomes so much more at ease and at peace, and its natural expression because of the ultimate safety realized within the body once all these neuroses have been removed, with this hand grenade of realization, if you will, it blows them all away. Is that a fair sort of synopsis of it, as it were?
We're all doing whatever we can to feel safe, right, and loved, and here we're just coming to do that in a most permanent way by the realization I don't die, I wasn't born.
Yeah.
As that deepens, it kind of untangles this massive thought that the person, if it is anything, is a bunch of thoughts and energies and emotions, and the seeing of the truth just begins to permeate that and dissolve it and allow it to unravel, which reflects then as our life. In that seeing, it allows the body, even the body and the mind, to begin to experience safety as well. It envelops the body in that field of, I could never be harmed. It's very hard to have an accident or anything then, something like that.
Because I know that it's not an avoidance thing. It's like, I know stuff happens in the expression of life, good and bad or whatever happens, you know, you still could get ill or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not so threatening. And also, I guess the ultimate thing is, me as a person, I'm very driven, motivated, probably through conditioning and stuff, a real sense of wanting to be autonomous in the sense of, I want to be the most authentic expression of myself rather than trying to be it. Just be brave enough to see what that actually is rather than trying to be it, and be comfortable again. And I guess in the losing of a lot of these insecurities or whatever, that's able to come forth as the expression of who you really are, because it's not veiled or being inhibited or whatever.
Yeah.
by this false self or whatever. Again, does that seem that the truer self of you, the truest expression will then come forward, as it were, your
Yeah.
life expression?
All that's really been the awareness is already free, but what's been blocking its expression is the thought structure that's very rigid, like we were saying, and that starts to disappear. You just are what you are, right? If you're
Yeah,
embarrassed, you're embarrassed. If you're angry, you're angry. But those things tend to disappear. Even you make a mistake, you just go, oh, I'm sorry. You know, there's no like beating yourself up about it. No post-mortem afterwards. It's just whatever you are, you are. And there's no urge to run from that. It's quite beautiful. It's quite beautiful to know who you are and be a human being
yes,
who's feeling nervous or
absolutely.
something like that, right? It's just whatever it is in that moment.
And on the back of that, the other point was discernment, especially when there's a sort of, if you will, being halfway across the bridge state where, you got one foot in both camps almost. And it's because a lot of the time I hear not to not trust, but not listen to your emotions or feelings as a guidance, a form of guidance, because they're generally story based. And I'm like, well, if that's the case, how do I, for instance, discern whether I'm in a healthy relationship or something that's good if I don't listen to? Because I could take my negative emotions or what low vibration, whatever people like to call it, as an indication that actually there's more work I need to do on myself to transcend something or not be triggered or whatever else. And that will then allow a healthy relationship. But there must come a point where it's like, goodness me, I've tried so far. At what point do I take, oh, this does not feel right, as truth, as it were? Um,
It's it's always good to ask, right? We can ask ourselves, is this happening because there's some belief that I haven't seen yet and looked at? Or is this actual guidance, this feeling that this isn't right for me anymore? So you can actually sit and listen to your body. You can ask it, is this guidance or resistance or something like that? And if you can get really quiet just for a little while and notice your body's yes and no answers, it will tell you. It never lies in that way, right? There'll be some strong feeling, like, and is that because I'm denying what I want and need, and the relationship is a little imbalanced, or is it because there's some trigger inside me that keeps getting triggered that I haven't looked at yet?
mm.
But just to ask, your body is made of awareness anyway. It's got the same wisdom. It will tell you every time.
I suppose there's nobody else there, as it were, to judge whether what it's saying is correct almost. It's
Yeah.
like it is what it is, and therefore it must be right to a point, because who am I that's able to judge these thoughts and feelings as right or otherwise?
Strictly speaking as well, any negative emotion is telling us that we're off course, we're
Yeah.
in illusion. And anything that goes from peace upwards, right to from love, joy, ecstasy, all of it is telling us that we are on course. So it's like a
Okay.
north and a south. You can always trust that. What the particular idea is that's reflecting as our emotion might be something different, but it's very much north or south on the compass in
Okay.
that way. Somehow, if I feel anything less than peaceful, I've somehow following something that's not true.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. We'll go to Elaine.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say that you got some very powerful stuff going on there. You said, imagine a pink elephant. And I looked down and there it was. So, yeah, and it made me wake up. So thank you.
I still have the dragon that you made me next to where I write. He sat there next to me, so that you gave me retreat. Thank you. Wonderful, thank you.
Just before I go though,
Yeah.
well, if this is something that can happen, can I send you in a couple of suggestions for the next time you say imagine something, so I get something different from a pink elephant?
Well, send them mentally and then we can have a little fun, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Wonderful. Pauline?
Hello.
Hi.
That was a lovely meditation. And then the first question that you read out about objectification. So, well, one thing that I've often had a small giggle about is in grammar. When I go from I to me, it's the accusative. It's the accusative case. It seems like as soon as we objectify something, we're accusing it in some way or other. But when I was thinking about, when I was doing the meditation, looking at the walls and realizing that I'm completely insubstantial, came up with this to know how insubstantial I am, because they are solid. And that enables me to understand better what I am. And it seemed to feed in a little to something I wonder about quite often, which is thought. Because, you always say, don't worry about the thoughts. And I also have heard you respond to a question saying some thoughts are just wonderful. And that's certainly my experience. And I find it we call them thoughts. When I look at them, I find it quite difficult to see what they are, but I can't objectify them because if I really look at them, they're just silent, there's nothing there, and then they're
just empty, right? Totally empty of substance, like you.
Yeah. So is the thought maybe the first thing that the formlessness starts to form to know itself, or?
It's one of the subtle ways. I mean, perhaps the life force would be the first extremely subtle manifestation. But things like thoughts and vibration and thoughts, they're very subtle, aren't they? But and they're completely insubstantial, like you are. They're made out of you. But we give them such for a long time we give them such a specialness in the whole realm of phenomena. We give thoughts this pedestal and put them upon, these are the phenomena that I really have to get away from, or whatever we're doing with thoughts. But they are very, very subtle. And manifestation goes from extremely subtle right down to a solid planet, hurling through space, and even the universe itself, as a manifestation. There's varying degrees of subtlety or grossness of it, of which thoughts are kind of one side of that scale.
Right. Yes. I'm well aware that I have lived so much of my life with labels rather than actually experiences. And it used to bother me a lot. I used to feel there was a veil of words, thoughts between what I was actually experiencing. I used to feel the need to put them into words so that I could really feel them. But now, they don't have to be the bad guys. It's only when they take over.
Mm-hmm. And it's what meaning we're giving them, right? If I use a thought to help me see that I'm seeing it, it becomes a sacred thing. If I feel like I'm terrorized by my mind because I feel like an object or someone, then it becomes the worst thing I've ever experienced, this barrage of thoughts. So it's really all in how we're holding it, isn't it? What's the reason? What am I doing with the phenomena that seem to be here? It really determines our experience. If I can recognize I'm just seeing them, then they'll be equally beautiful. A thought will be as beautiful as the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. If I feel like a person who's trying to get rid of them, they'll seem like the enemy or something like that, right?
I always thought that thing from Hamlet about there's nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And that what you said just now and in meditation, that's a new way for me. I just really love the idea of manifestation as sacred, as the form is sacred, seeing it in that way. That's beautiful. Thank you very much.
It has to be. Ultimately, it has to be, because it's arising out of you. Anything made out of you is the same as you. It can't be different, really. It looks and feels different. Like the difference between the wall behind you and the awareness seems to be vast. But ultimately, in the deeper seeing, there really can't be a difference. And you did all of this just to entertain yourself and help you recognize yourself. You know,
And see my own sacredness.
yes.
Wow.
Yeah, look at what I can make. How
Yes.
amazing am I? You know, it's
Yes.
from there, all phenomena are just stunningly beautiful. From the what everyone else would call mundane, it's just you're in love with it. Just like it's an art sculpture. Look at this thought I made. Look at all these thoughts I made, right? It's a different place to perceive them from, different way.
Thank you so much. It's beautiful.
Thank you, thank you. Wonderful. Okay, we'll go to Lisa, last but not least.
Hi, thanks, Helen.
Hi.
Actually, this question seems to follow on quite nicely from the last talk, and actually arose out of a little Sangha group that I was part of that met yesterday, and we had some discussions around this. So I said I would, if I got the chance, would ask you the question. And I suspect I have a sense I've asked it before. It certainly, I'm sure, has been asked many, many times. So, so how does the formless, which is without qualities, you know, this emptiness, and without desire, which you mentioned last night in the extra class, that, you know, this the formless has no desire. The form has lots, but the formless has no desire. So where did this wish to experience itself in the shape of form come from? I mean, is that the mystery in terms of how does emptiness take shape? Is that like the total mystery that
It is. I really
countless sages have tried to
why does it
explain?
why do I do all of this? It could only be something like for enjoyment or for self-recognition. You could say in a very loose way that you like to make shapes, you like to play with ripples.
That's a desire, right? That's a desire.
It's a desire, but that desire is also a shape that's just happening spontaneously. It's not
Right.
anybody's desire, right? It's just a desire. And the shape it's making are desires. And when it appears in ever more complex shapes, the complexity of the evolution, Darwin's theory of evolution, you can see the self, the infinite seer, you can see its quest to understand itself becoming ever more possible. And then we end up eventually with opposable thumbs and the capacity to self-inquire. And I'm not so sure if it's worth it. You know, my cat seems much happier sometimes, but the point being, as it takes any shape, it will have this shape called desire arising, because even a plant has desire to move towards the light. And once it has a shape, a desire to continue existing, and all of that begins to appear, and the complexity gets the way of desire, you know.
Yeah, but it's this, was it that decided to take shape, you know? Maybe, I think, what did you say, Eddie? Something about the initial shape might have been, well, it's just like this, the energy, the life force was the first thing that took shape. Why? How?
Why? Nobody knows, right?
No,
Because
right.
you could only really say it's totally causeless. Totally causeless. Nothing caused manifestation. And even then, even then, we could say this whole discussion is pointless, because nothing really ever arose out of the self. Right? A ripple on the surface of the water is still water. Don't stop
It's,
me.
it's like just this huge cosmic joke, right? And it's
And it,
beautiful. It's a sacred cosmic joke. It's just awesome, but
is.
it's like really funny.
It really is. It creates all these human beings apparently who go around going, yeah, but how? How? Why? Why?
Yeah, I think that's the answer. Yeah.
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 It's perhaps the question we can't answer, and from a different place, the question isn't relevant either, right? How did all this come about? It didn't really. It's just an infinite dream that the dreamer is having, right? The infinite seer is dreaming and dreaming all this stuff that never really is here, but still, because it's made of the dreamer, it's just as holy as the dreamer itself. It's so it's one of those where I don't have an answer. Maybe the laughing is the answer.
Yeah, exactly. And how just beautiful that there's that mystery, right?
Yeah. It speaks of its own nature, right? It's just eternally really unknowable and mysterious and utterly beautiful. And we perhaps we created human beings so we could keep on trying to see and coming back to this joy every time, you know?
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay, beautiful. Thanks so much, Helen. Thank
You
you.
can go back and tell everyone I didn't answer the question, yeah?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. I think I better end it before I lose it completely. Thank you for thank you for being here with me today, and for your amazing questions and insights, and the questions that you sent in as well. I always look at my iPad when like talking, which you can't see because it's out of the view. I think I better stop this now before it descends into more giggles. Thank you so much, and yeah, thank you for being here. Namaste.